Thưa Prabhupada, hỏi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from 6th Canto, Chapter 2. Let me just pull it up. Text 22, correct?
That's correct. 22.
Okay. Tvijaphashadvinirmukto gataphi prakritim gataha bhavande shirasa vishnu kinkaran darshanotsabaha. Tvijaphashadvinirmukto gataphi prakritim gataha bhavande shirasa vishnu kinkaran darshanotsabaha. Tvijaphashadvinirmukto Gata bhi prakritim gataha bhavane shirasa vishnu kinkaran darshana savaha. Would anybody like to repeat? All right, word for word. Tvija, the Brahmana, Ajamil, Pashat, from the noose. Vinirmukta, being released. Gatavi, freed from fear. Prakritim Gataha, came to his senses. Bhavande offered his respectful obeisances. Shirasa, by bowing his head. Vishnu, of Lord Vishnu. Kinkaran, unto the servants. Darshana Utsaha, very pleased by seeing them. Having been translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: having been released from the nooses of Yamaraj's servants, the Brahmana Ajamil, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnu Dutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. Purport: Vaishnavas are also Vishnu Dutas because they carry out the orders of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very eager for all the conditioned souls rotting in this material world to surrender to him and be saved from material pangs in this life and punishment and hellish conditions after death. A Vaishnava therefore tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. Those who are fortunate, like Ajamil, are saved by the Vishnu Dutas or Vaishnavas, and thus they return back home, back to Godhead. Translation again: having been released from the nooses of Yamaraja's servants, the Brahmana Ajamil, now freed from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnu Dutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. Om Jnana Timanandasya Kananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yen Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna devotees online. Let me just pull out my notes. So we'll read a lot today from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, because oh no, let me pull it up on my phone. Because this verse made me think about how, well, Prabhupada's making the point in the purport how merciful the Vaishnavas are. He says he uses the Vishnu Dutas and Vaishnavas sort of interchangeably. And I've just been reading the Adi Leela, and I just got done reading the 9th and 10th chapter, which describes the desire tree of devotional service. And Prabhupada has some very wonderful purports in there. Where do I want to start? So this, like I said, this verse in purport talks about how the devotees carry out the orders of the Lord. And then at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, everyone knows that the last verse, or not the last verse, but Krishna's ultimate instruction, Sarvadharma Parityagya, and so on. And I often hear Devamrita Maharaj make the point that this instruction is the same as Lord Chaitanya's instruction that wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach them the science of Krishna. So, yeah, we could see that Lord Chaitanya is so merciful because, well, of course, he's merciful in many ways, but just this point of surrender, if you hear that, that's pretty startling, even as a devotee still. It's like, oh, Krishna says surrender to me. That sounds, surrender has so many negative connotations in the English language, at least. And it's I made this point in the last class, but Krishna says to control the mind and senses and come to the Brahma Bhuta platform, and then you can get a taste of Krishna. And then Lord Chaitanya flips that on its head and says, okay, first we'll give you a taste, and then, we'll worry about all the rules and regulations later. I'm just distracted because I think I have to plug in the computer. 1 second. Okay. So we will read from the very beginning of chapter 9 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, starting with the chapter summary, because it describes this, well, the tree of Lord Chaitanya, and how, so many devotees that, I mean, pretty much the whole tree is just, Prabhupada's going on and on about all the different devotees of Lord Chaitanya and how they served Lord Chaitanya and carried out this instruction of wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach them the science of Krishna in so many different ways. And I was just reading and really relishing how uniquely all the devotees serve Lord Chaitanya, what they offer to him, whether they're, a householder, a sannyasi, or they're like Vikeshwara Pandit, he's famous for his dancing. And then Haridas Thakur, he's famous for, his chanting of the holy names and so on and so forth. There's so many different things that these devotees offer, and they're all wonderful. And this is the pinnacle of individuality. So I'll just read the chapter summary because it says it all better than I could. Prabhupada says, a summary of chapter 9 has been given as follows by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. In this chapter, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has devised a figurative example by describing the desired tree of bhakti. He considers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Vishvambara, to be the gardener of this tree because he is the main personality who has taken charge of it. As the supreme enjoyer, he enjoyed the fruits himself and distributed them as well. The seed of the tree was first sown in Navadvip, the birth site of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then the tree was brought to Purushottama Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, and then to Vrindavan. The seed fructified first in Srila Madhavendra Puri, and then in his disciple Sri Ishvara Puri. It is figuratively described that both the tree itself and the trunk of the tree are Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puri and 8 other great sannyasis are like the spreading roots of the tree. From the main trunk, there extend 2 special branches, Advaita Prabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and from those branches grow other branches and twigs. The tree surrounds the entire world, and the fruits of the tree are to be distributed to everyone. In this way, the tree of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu intoxicates the entire world. It should be noted that this is a figurative example meant to explain the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it always amazed me that Lord Chaitanya is the gardener, and he's also the tree, the trunk of the tree himself, and he's also the one distributing the fruits. So that immediately made me think of, those who do gardening on the farm, like let's take Dasi Prem Prabhu, for example, that, he is the gardener, so he's tending to the vegetables, and right now, zucchini, I think still harvesting zucchini, and then he's also doing the CSA program, so he's also distributing the fruits, quote unquote, the vegetables, but he is not the zucchini himself. So there's a distinction there, and it's amazing to me that Lord Chaitanya is, also the tree himself. It's just, yeah, it's inconceivable. So, yeah, Prabhupada explains in so many purports in this ninth chapter, and we'll read some of them, that essentially we are to take on the spiritual anxiety of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that there's the famous verses that he's saying, I am just one person, I can't distribute all these fruits alone. Of course he can, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but um, he likes to use his devotees. That's even more relishable for him, just like the examples there in the Bhagavad Gita. So many places, the whole Bhagavatam is pretty much him highlighting the glories of his devotees, Prahlad Maharaj, Arjuna, and showing how exalted they are, and what surrender looks like in a way that is kind of scary, because they do, Prahlad Maharaj is completely surrendered in so many, his father's trying to kill him in so many ways, and he's so tolerant. But then, that part is scary. Like, oh my gosh, how could I ever do something like that, be in danger and be that tolerant? I would have to put a lot of faith in Krishna. But we also see the blissful side, how blissful Prahlad Maharaj was, and how blissful he was preaching to his demoniac schoolmates. And similarly with Arjuna, that he actually paid a very small price. Of course, this whole pastime is the Lord's arrangement, but Arjuna paid a very small price for the relationship that he had with Krishna, or that he subsequently from the Bhagavad Gita had with Krishna. Um, you know, that little bit of surrender that he did. Okay, Krishna, I'll trust what you're asking me to do or instructing me to do. And then look at all the taste he got in the relationship with Krishna. I mean, that's really what we all want at the end of the day, is like some rasa, some juice in relationships. But Krishna can reciprocate so unlimitedly that we don't have to have insecurity or fear, or all the things that creep into mundane relationships, or even relationships that aren't mundane but are, even amongst devotees. Like, we might get we might have a friend or a partner, and then we might get jealous, or like, oh, how could you talk to them, or how, do you like them more than me, or whatever insecurities might be there. But with Krishna, there's none of those insecurities. He can reciprocate with all his devotees unlimitedly. I mean, he's even reciprocating with the non-devotees, what to speak of the devotees in their special way. And we can get a little glimpse of that. I think Nagari Krishna Prabhu was giving a class, well, probably over a month ago. But we're speaking about the spiritual master, and that the spiritual master really highlights for me, whether it's the case of Srila Prabhupada, or if we're his grand disciples, then one of his disciples is our spiritual master, and we can see in our spiritual masters that they have an inconceivable ability to reciprocate with so many different devotees and just know exactly how, even before they really get to know you materially. It's always blown my mind how that's possible, and so many devotees have that experience with Srila Prabhupada. I mean, yeah, I probably couldn't even count, and even people that are no longer devotees or didn't even fully take up the practice, they still felt this reciprocation from Prabhupada. So I was going to skip ahead a little bit in this ninth chapter and start reading from text 6. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, I take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who himself is the tree of transcendental love of Krishna, its gardener, and also the bestower and enjoyer of its fruits. Lord Chaitanya thought, my name is Vishvambara, one who maintains the entire universe. Its meaning will be actualized if I can fill the whole universe with love of Godhead. Thinking in this way, he accepted the duty of a planter and began to grow a garden in Navadvip. Thus the Lord brought the desire tree of devotional service to this earth and became its gardener. He sowed the seed and sprinkled upon it the water of his will. All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. He is a desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. So I'll just skip ahead a little bit in this chapter, but this point is so nice that, of course, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, but he's taking on the role of Krishna's devotee. And so the point is made that, the seed of this devotional creeper or devotional service expanding throughout the whole world was first planted in Navadvip. And then obviously it's not been contained to Navadvip because I'm sitting here now, everyone's online here. Thank goodness for that. So once, the devotee is such a touchstone that once they start cultivating bhakti, even in one geographical area, it just expands and expands and expands from there. I mean, there's so many cases of that. Of course, Srila Prabhupada is, just his journey in each place, like New York, that um, congregation, I guess, that he had, those devotees started small and then expanded. San Francisco, everywhere he went like that. Or even in what was the name of the devotee that either he sent to Germany or the devotee wanted to go to Germany. And then he was just a young boy and he was there trying to preach, and he would Tarika Prabhu, what was his name?
Shivananda.
Shivananda. So, thank you. So he went and he would be corresponding with Prabhupada, like having some doubts, and then Prabhupada eventually came to Germany and encouraged him in so many ways. And so even that, a brand new devotee, he had others taking to devotional service as well. So the devotee is, even if they're, so-called new, they also become a touchstone and can affect whatever area they're in. So just skipping ahead to text 25 of this chapter. As a big fig tree bears fruits all over its body, each part of the tree of devotional service bore fruit. And I'll just read the purport to this verse. Purport: this tree of devotional service is not of this material world. It grows in the spiritual world, where there is no distinction between one part of the body and another. It is something like a tree of sugar, for whichever part of such a tree one tastes, it is always sweet. The tree of bhakti has varieties of branches, leaves, and fruits, but they are all meant for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are 9 different processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedanam. But all of them are meant only for the service of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, whether one hears, chants, remembers, or worships, his activities will yield the same result. Which one of these processes will be the most suitable for a particular devotee depends upon his taste. So going back to that point of the individuality of the devotees, it's, yeah, what, I was going to say what resonates with them is, yeah, dependent on the taste, which is true, but all of Lord Chaitanya's associates are, they're eternally liberated associates. So they already have their, their swarup, their eternal way of serving Krishna. So, continuing on, since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the original trunk, the taste of the fruits that grew on the branches and sub-branches surpassed the taste of nectar. The fruits ripened and became sweet and nectarian. The gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed them without asking any price. All the wealth in the 3 worlds cannot equal the value of one such nectarian fruit of devotional service. Not considering who asked for it and who did not, nor who is fit and who unfit to receive it, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributed the fruit of devotional service. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, this is the sum and substance of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. There is no distinction made between those who are fit and those who are not fit to hear or take part in the Sankirtan movement. It should therefore be preached without discrimination. The only purpose of the preachers of the Sankirtan movement must be to go on preaching without restriction. That is the way in which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced this Sankirtan movement to the world. So when I read this, I was really, meditating on this point that, first of all, what Lord Chaitanya is trying to give us is, like I was saying, that point that whatever we feel like we're giving up or having to surrender, is so paltry compared to the taste that Krishna and Lord Chaitanya have in store for us. I mean, so paltry compared to what they've already given us, Our lives are like that Prabhupada had said, I believe, that your worst day in bhakti is still better than your best day in material life. So sometimes, at least for myself, it's easy to forget that whenever, we do feel like we're having, a bad day in bhakti or some disagreement or tired or whatever, this, that, or the other. But still, it's so much better than the emptiness and existential dread that is just, packaged in with material life. So we know from experience, or at least theoretically, that what we've so-called surrendered so far to be able to take up the practice of bhakti has yielded so much nectar in our lives that it far surpasses anything we've had to, give up. But still, there's like the Maya just influences us that there still is hesitation to, to surrender more, not in terms of like you have to go sell your house or something, but that whenever we are going through a difficulty, that we feel confident that Krishna is there, or not a difficulty, also Krishna is there, and that we, the holy name is there to take shelter of. So easy to forget that or think, chanting Hare Krishna cannot solve all problems. Of course, we also take practical measures to be able to facilitate that. Like I said, if you have a broken arm, then you can chant Hare Krishna, but also please go to the hospital. But I wanted to read a couple more verses. The transcendental gardener, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed handful after handful of fruit in all directions, And when the poor, hungry people ate the fruit, the gardener smiled with great pleasure. Oh yeah, this is the other point from that purport that we read, that the fruit should be distributed without discrimination. I was just thinking about how much I discriminate, and Kumari Gopi was giving class the other day and was talking about how she will take books with her to the grocery store, wherever she's going. They took some to the airport. I mean, really, wherever they go. And then Gokulila was asking, you know, it's hard. It's hard to do. I also have this hesitation that whenever you're in the book distribution mode, like, okay, I'm going to go to this spot on the street, I'm going to stand there, maybe I have a table, maybe I have some prasadam, or even just the comfort of having a rolling book trolley, or just, yeah, not just approaching people um, while they're looking at cans of soup or something like that. It just feels very intimidating. Um, and to ask for a donation inside of you know, a shop. But reading this purport made me reflect how serious this is. That if you just, next time you're at the grocery store, or I did this at Weiss, I was just looking around and I'm like, oh my God, I mean, that person is going to become a dog in their next life. That person's going to become a cricket. That person, not that I know exactly what they're going to become, but you get the point that I mean, practically everybody in Kali Yuga, unless they have come in contact with devotees or have some other kind of good fortune, are going to become animals in the next life. And not only that, like, okay, well, maybe they'll be a happy dog and be taken care of, but they have to go to the hellish planets and suffer so much pain. Yeah, just agonizing pain so that their consciousness can be, knocked down enough that they're willing to take any body, and they're willing to take the body of an animal. So anyway, I was just walking around and I'm like, whoa, so we should not have, or I should not have so much hesitation in not just distributing books in a grocery store, but in general, sharing Krishna consciousness with others, and not be so disturbed if people, in the face of rejection, if people are like no, or get out of here, or more profane things, which can hurt, really hurts, like the false ego. But at least we tried, that's so pleasing to Lord Chaitanya. And if we really understand the gravity of where people are headed, and where we were headed for taking to Krishna consciousness, then it becomes so, the rejection, or even the anxiety, the initial anxiety of approaching someone, becomes so puny compared to like what we're actually trying to give them and save them from. It's definitely a worthy sacrifice. And that just doesn't just refer to book distribution, but any, if you want to invite people to a Krishna conscious event, or I mean, giving prasadam is pretty pretty, can be liberally done, and there's usually not much hesitation there. But yeah, any way that you want to share Krishna with others, we should not have hesitation. Hang on. So again, skipping ahead. Okay, so this is the well, one of the famous verses where Lord Chaitanya says, I am the only gardener. How many places can I go? How many fruits can I pick and distribute? Purport. Here, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indicates that the distribution of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra should be performed by combined forces. Although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he laments, how can I act alone? How can I alone pick the fruit and distribute it all over the world? This indicates that all classes of devotees should combine to distribute the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra without consideration of the time, place, or situation. Same, making that point, without consideration of the time, place, or situation. Not that you know, go into work tomorrow and try to make your boss take a Bhagavatam set or something like that, but being tactful, using our intelligence and discrimination, but not yeah, I am really speaking for myself, not being so reserved and trying to give a little bit of bhakti to others or a lot of bhakti to others. Yeah, and I was also thinking how Prabhupada says that um, we by combined forces we should share the Maha Mantra with others, and it made me think of Gita Nagari or any devotional community that I've lived in and how diverse it is. I remember when Devamrita Maharaj was visiting Mantra Lounge and staying, or he was staying at the ashram in Philadelphia with us, and I think he was coming down to came downstairs to give a class in our living room slash temple room, and he just looked at all of us and he's like, "Well, you guys are a real motley crew, aren't you?" Because it was just so. I mean, Mulakarna was like pushing 50 from Malaysia, and I was like 18 or 19 at that point, and we had devotees from Canada and men, women, like just yeah, such a mixed bunch. But somehow or other, we were all working together to try a little bit to please Krishna and do some kind of service. And similarly here, everybody knows it's quite a diverse population, but somehow or other, despite the differences, um, we're, we keep on keeping on. So, and Gitanagari has flourished so much because of that. I mean, even from the time that I first came here or first started coming here to now, it's changed and expanded and improved, and so many new programs have been added. So it's very nice to see. Mhm. So then Lord Chaitanya goes on to instruct. Well, he actually orders that every man within this universe accepts this Krishna consciousness movement and distributes it everywhere. And this is the last part of a purport that I'll read. Prabhupada says the Sankirtan movement has been introduced by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to dispel the illusion of Maya, by which everyone in this material world thinks himself to be a product of matter and therefore to have many duties pertaining to the body. Actually, the living entity is not his material body. He is a spirit soul. He has a spiritual need to be eternally blissful and full of knowledge, but unfortunately, he identifies himself with the body, sometimes as a human being, sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a tree, sometimes an aquatic, sometimes a demigod, and so on. Thus, with each change of body, he develops a different type of consciousness with different types of activities, and thus becomes increasingly entangled in material existence, transmigrating perpetually from one body to another. So then Prabhupada says, to eradicate this illusion, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has brought the Sankirtan movement, and he requests everyone to accept it and distribute it. If one is fortunate enough to beg from the Lord this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, his life is successful. Yeah, so again, the point that if I really knew how fortunate I am and how much of a gem the Hare Krishna mantra is, I would have no hesitation begging the Lord for the mantra and to be able to hear and associate with him. But yeah, these purports just, I mean, I'm reading so many of them because they just so succinctly capture what is the mood, what is the mission, what did Srila Prabhupada come to establish, who's he following in the succession of, like it makes the mission very clear. Like, there's a whole rebranding of Gitanagari to and with that comes, I mean, I can't even remember all the things. Like you need the mission statement and the values and the purpose and so many things just to create a brand or a website or marketing materials. Um, and get everybody on board. And these purports are just exactly that. Prabhupada's just laying out the mood, the mission, the means, mood, mission, and means to carry out the Krishna consciousness movement. Hmm. Sorry, just reading my notes because I had a lot, but I want to see. Yeah, so I just in regards to this point of surrender, I have been thinking of this question over and over again, like how do we become surrendered to Krishna, but at the same time not complacent? And I think that this question comes to my mind so much because I mean, pretty much the mode of passion was my driving force, is my driving force. Maybe there's a little bit of like um, something other than mode of passion. I don't know. Hopefully, a little like at least trying to please the devotees, and in that way try to please Krishna, but a very tiny bit. So still predominantly the mode of passion, that I'm very result oriented. Um, Things like that. Of course, we could dovetail that in devotional service, and I'm so grateful to have be able to do that. But I just could not wrap my head around this. I'm like, how do we have that mood of like whatever Krishna wants, however Krishna wants it, without being passive? And I just thinking about it and thinking about it. And then I was like, I really operate more on examples, like personal examples, real life. So then I just thought of Srila Prabhupada and I was like, oh, that's how that, he was definitely whatever Krishna wants, however Krishna wants it. Especially after, he had thought that he'd become very rich in India first and then preach in the West, but then Krishna, as Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna and him had an argument. Um, but anyway, Srila Prabhupada was in that mood of full surrender. And at the same time, though, he was so motivated. He was not complacent at all. And that's because he was taking on the order of his spiritual master. So that's the conclusion that I came to is okay. I mean, everybody probably already knows this. That's a big revelation for me. But how do we be whatever Krishna wants, however Krishna wants it on the bhakti platform, but not just kind of like, okay, well, whatever happens to me today, whatever pushes me along, however Krishna wants. If he wants, I guess I'll get out of this chair. If not, I'll just sit here, not like complacent. But to be surrendered and very motivated means to take up the instruction of the spiritual master, because then we're acting on the desires of Krishna, how he wants them, how he wants things executed, and can really get, you know, so energized and so enthused by that and do more than we would have done just for our own sense gratification. So, yeah, Prabhupada does make that point, right? That in the Bhagavad Gita purport that disturbance is due to want of an ultimate goal, because everybody wants a mission in life. But I think that there's this fear in bhakti in the back of the mind that, okay, well, I know I want a mission in life, but I don't want it to be someone else's mission. I want it to be my mission. Or even if it is, I mean, even materially, we take up all kinds of other people's missions, like whether it's for your company or for some volunteer program or some humanitarian thing, or if you have if you're married or have kids, you're definitely taking on other people's missions. But we don't feel so much hesitation about that because the ultimate end, as we see it, as our sense gratification, whereas taking up the mission of spiritual master, of Krishna, there might be some hesitancy because it's like, oh, but the ultimate end is Krishna's sense gratification, serving the senses of Hrishikesh, the master of the senses. But I mean, if we keep reading, then we also understand that Krishna's not going to leave us out. It's not that our senses are going to be all dried up and withered away. even spiritually. Hopefully our material senses dry up and wither away, but spiritual senses dry up and wither away because we're just so focused on Krishna's senses, always Krishna's senses. Krishna will not leave us out. He includes us in the enjoyment. So yeah, I was just, and it's just very true, like that even for sense gratification, like I was saying, they take up so many missions. Like I finally found the purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Prabhupada's saying that sense gratification takes many different forms or like the headings of, altruism. He says, he lists some stuff that the first time I read it, I was like, what? He says biblical codes, moral codes, tolerance, bashfulness. There's another one, tolerance, bashfulness. Yeah, so many things like that. And I'm like, wow, he's really getting subtle and very deep, which was such a relief for me because I was so before coming to Bhakti, since I was 13 and I went to Israel and Palestine, I got so enmeshed and so obsessed with like that whole conflict and like the politics behind it and the politics like the international politics behind it in the US and how the Israel lobby and like this and boycotting certain things and this, that, and the other. Um, but whenever it just what yeah, obviously it wasn't satisfying and deep. I mean, it was really for my own sense gratification, like so that I feel like a good person or yeah. Anyway, whenever I came to Bhakti, it was such a relief that like Prabhupada understands these subtleties and just knocks it right out. He's like, oh yeah, even if you think you're a good person materially, like at the end of the day, it's still for your sense gratification. It might not be so gross as like, yeah, other forms, I guess, but even subtly. So it was a relief. Mm, yeah. So incrementally, we can move towards this goal of fully taking to heart the mission of the spiritual master. And there's kind of, of course, there's always the overarching mission to share, give ourselves Krishna consciousness and share Krishna consciousness with whoever we can, whether it's our children, spouse, friends, workmates, colleagues, people that are part of your volleyball team. Um, yeah, people at the grocery store, and then, I mean, even wider than that. So that's sort of the overarching one that's always there. And then we also have the specific instructions from the spiritual master about how to execute what he um, wants us to do to engage in devotional service. So we incrementally move towards that, you know, taking hold of the instructions of the spiritual master more and more and making um, that mission fully part of our heart. So, yeah, I'll just stop there actually. Um, if anybody has some comments, it would be much appreciated. Questions I will try to answer or clarify. It's just on online today, by the way, so it's all you guys.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Palika Prabhu, thank you for a nice class. It gave me lots to think about. Um, Reminded me of a lot of the things that I went through in my early days in Krishna consciousness. I trying to gather my thoughts here. So some of what you have described, I'm having a hard time relating to, um, which doesn't mean anything other, than the fact it's just confirmation that we're all individuals and we have very different experiences. I it's having a hard time trying to understand some of the things that you've described, but a lot of it I absolutely do relate to. Um, and one thing that I have experienced is that for many years of my early Krishna consciousness, I didn't have a specific duty, a particular service that was something that I could focus on. Um, I was just a general sort of devotee, and my duty was just to do the necessary, whatever the situation required. So that the scope was very, very broad, and it was kind of an uncomfortable condition for me. I had a longing, a desire to have something that I could really focus on. But somehow or other, that's not the way things played out in my life. I just there were always um, just a very broad scope of activities, and I would just have to find a way to do something useful in whatever the context was. Um, Sometimes there were specific things requested of me, and I had to be very flexible and very surrendered, prepared to do whatever was required. But I always wanted something specific, something in particular to do. And I used to pray sometimes to have something that I could really focus on and pour my heart into. And that did eventually happen for me. And so I feel much more comfortable having something that I can really focus on rather than having every day come at me as a surprise, never knowing exactly, what it is I'm going to have to apply myself to next. That was kind of uncomfortable, but nonetheless, it was um, spiritually satisfying and enlivening, always exciting and enlivening, never dull. I was never bored. Um, can't remember what boredom is like. I think I must have experienced that in my childhood, but I really can't remember that feeling. People speak about boredom, but I can't relate to boredom. And um, what was I going to say? That um, complacency. You spoke about complacency, and I wasn't really sure what you meant because I just have a hard time relating to that. Um, my own experience is that there is just so much scope for rendering devotional service and just limitless opportunities, and so many of them are so exciting to me. Want to do everything, and I can't do everything. I have to try to focus, or it becomes overwhelming. But um, I'm trying to imagine a situation in which I would have to contend with complacency, and I can't think of what that might be. Could you maybe describe in some greater detail what you mean when you refer to complacency?
Yes. I mean, my first thought is you're so fortunate. I hope to be able to come to that one day. No, no complacency. I guess the I think part of it is that maybe something with my generation or younger generation is like there's not really much. Well, sometimes there's drive, but sometimes it's just like you're waiting for things to happen to you or somebody to tell you what to do because there's not much self-esteem and not much confidence or like, yeah, like I want to take something and do something with it. I mean, practically the mode of ignorance is increasing and increasing. So even to have the mode of passion is going to become rare. So with mode of ignorance, there's laziness. You could say complacency as well. Um, but if we are just kind of, I guess allowing ourselves to just be shuffled along in bhakti, like, oh yeah, I mean, I'll do the service, but I'm not really gonna, put my heart into it. The heart wants something to, sink its teeth into. So the point about having a mission, having something to, yeah, put our heart into is very important. And I think that combats complacency or just kind of floating along in bhakti, which is, I mean, it's better than floating along in the material world, but uh, it's nice if we can get enthusiastic and really the heart feels full once you're like, yeah, let's do something for Krishna. Like you said, you want to do so many things for Krishna. So I mean, I can just aspire for a little bit of what you're describing, to be so enthused, to see so many opportunities for service. Does that help at all?
Yes, it does, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I can't remember. I understand what you're talking about now, but I that just hasn't been my experience. I was,
Jai.
um, I was, and I don't think it's necessarily because of any special advancement or anything. You know, as I said, everyone's an individual. Um, my first days in Krishna consciousness, I was just excited and enthused from day one. I didn't have to be assigned any particular task. I was just enthused to do something. I grabbed a bunch of books and I bought a pair of kartals and um, the devotees initially wouldn't let me move into the temple because I was too young. I was still in school. Um, so I started distributing prasad and books at school, and then after school I found places to go. There was a community college nearby, and I would go there and sit down and play kartals, chant whatever I knew, and try to distribute some small books of Back to Godhead magazines, argue with some Christians or whatever. And it was just always very enlivening and enthusing. There was just always something to do. Was never a situation in which I was at a loss for something to do. Um, the devotees introduced
See,
me. Oh,
thank you,
yeah,
Guru.
Shri Radha Damodar, Hare Krishna.
Krishna.